come back into the building. So we all went into different rooms and went into hiding. But at that time, we didn't have information on what was going on. We were afraid for some of our colleagues who'd already run out. We were not sure if they had made it out of the building and were safely away from the whole situation. So it was a bit scary because most of us tried to barricade ourselves in different offices. Luckily, within the entire building, everybody allowed you in if they have seen you before. So if you are running up the stairs and you see a floor that's open, so you'd run into any office and hide with colleagues from different companies. There was sort of a camaraderie between people. We had people from different offices above us. We are on second floor. We had people from sixth floor, fifth floor, all hiding within our office as we waited for police rescue. We were there for quite some time, till around, say, 5:45, 5:50. That's when we were rescued, and they then proceeded to rescue everybody within our building floor by floor.
Okay, and Henry, you know, like you said, of course, people within the building, they were letting you into their offices, they were letting people in so they could also hide and come to a zone was safe, and you said you were rescued a little bit, closer to 6 p.m. After having hidden there for that much time. So what were you doing while hiding? Were you able to communicate with anyone outside? And were you seeing what was happening via social media? What was there that you were using to find out what was going on? Was there any means of communication for you to be able to talk to the people outside?
Okay, well, the first priority was, of course, for everybody to reach out to their families. Some of our colleagues had left in a hurry and did not have their phones with them where we were hiding. So we just made sure everybody was able to get a message out to their family, tell them we were safe. Is it whether it's via WhatsApp or via SMS? We just made sure everybody at least first was able to reach out to people on the outside, especially family members and those close to them. And then from there, people started a process of trying to account for each other. For instance, in our office, we reached out through the office WhatsApp group and said, okay, everybody check in, tell us where you're hiding, how many are you in that room, who's with you, so that we could get maybe an immediate assessment of what was going on. But to your question in regard to social media, it really was tough for a lot of people because at the end of the day, access to information depends on what side you're sitting on. So for some of us who are within the building, people outside tended to have more information than we did, and it tended to drive more panic than it did in terms of relief because you're inside the building, you're not quite sure what has happened, how many attackers they are, where they are. So once you get onto WhatsApp, onto Instagram, and onto maybe Facebook and Twitter, you could see the gory scenes of the restaurant downstairs. So it tended to make us more anxious than it was. It was not as helpful as it made us more anxious because when you're inside the building, you're not really sure what's going on. Maybe you may have started processing that maybe it is a terror attack, but you're all hoping against all odds that maybe it's just a robbery or something that's not as scary. But once you start seeing those images from on live TV and on social media, it sort of heightens the pressure that you're undergoing as people who are inside the rooms. So I think for most people who are on the inside, social media was more of a negative aspect than it was helpful for sometimes. But maybe for those who were trying to communicate to people outside and tell them they were okay, when you use social media from the inside, you are trying to get rescue. So it was beneficial to you to send out the information, but the information you are seeing or receiving from the outside, live streaming over TV on YouTube, tended to make us more scared and more afraid of what might happen to us than it was reassuring.
Okay, Henry. So from what I gather from what you say, the conversations on social media were creating more panic. They were counterproductive for you inside, seeing these things and making you more fearful, as opposed to a means for you to try and get help, as one may think that would be the case. And as we continue this conversation, I want to ask you, now that you've said that, what do you think? What would you share with us and other others who would, in such a situation, how would they conduct themselves, especially those on social media? What would you say from your perspective now is how people should conduct themselves on social media when something like this is happening, as even those inside are seeing that information as much as those who are not around that particular area?
I think it's more about being more aware on the impacts that your communication may be having on those people who are stranded on the inside first, and also to their family members. So if, as a Kenyan, I'm sure every Kenyan was worried that this is happening in our country. So if you think about it and you heighten it and magnify it, if you did know someone who was inside, you would see that it would do more harm for the parents, for maybe the siblings, spouses, even the children, because the thing about social media is it's unfiltered. Anyone can access it. And you can imagine a situation where a child or someone who is in campus, someone who is in high school has access to some of these tools, and they know that their parent or their sibling or maybe even a close relative works within that premises. From seeing those kind of gory pictures, it would be more scary for them. And for the people inside, because we were sure that, after a certain point, we were sure that it was a terror attack because we had the explosion, people ran out. There was about maybe 3 to 5 minutes before the gunshot started. Not quite sure what was happening at that time. Maybe the attackers were positioning themselves to attack more people. But once the gunshot started, everybody was sure that the situation was a bit more dire than we had thought. So as we barricaded ourselves in the offices, our first concern, of course, was to our families, getting them to get information out. Then we also went on social media to try and get information out to a few people and tell them there's an attack at this place, it's ongoing. But from the feedback you receive from the outside, it makes you more anxious, it makes you more nervous, and it's a bit more disruptive for the person on the other side. So information does cut both ways depending on where you sit. While for us who are on the inside were just trying to communicate where we were, the images that were coming back right at us, because if you look through a timeline, you cannot really filter what you see, tended to make us panic more. So I'd urge people in certain situations, you may want to be a bit more self-aware and give a thought to those people who are already undergoing that circumstance, who are also continuing to go through the same sort of attack. They're going through it at the moment while you're live tweeting, while you're sharing images live. And most of them, most people who are inside the buildings could not see most of the pictures that were being sent from the outside. They only saw them on social media. Most people, if you looked out the window, you couldn't see some of the gory pictures. So it tended to be a bit more scary from the inside.
Yes, Henry, and thank you for that particular feedback. Thank you for availing us with your thoughts on exactly the impact that, people sharing such images, such information on social media in such a situation has, not just on the people outside, but of course those inside who are accessing that. And, I want to go back to what happened when you were rescued. And were you aware that these people who are coming into are the security agents? How was that particular situation? How did that play out when you were finally rescued from that building?
I think during the last attack, that would be the Westgate attack, I was a journalist, and I saw how the communication and the information was being relayed in terms of both rescue. The procedures were not in place. I'd say this time round, they really did a commendable job, because they went as far as getting numbers of heads of departments, heads of companies, and asking who can we call. It was more coordinated, because just before we were rescued, we'd already received a call from the person leading the rescue mission, and they told us, look, we are coming up. We will be there. We are clearing building by building, floor by floor. Let us know where you are. So they actually was a lot of coordination, so that by the time they came into our building, which luckily is the first one, the Hanover building, by the time they were coming and getting to our floor, we already knew they were coming. We knew what to anticipate. The gentleman even explained to us, before you even stand up to look, wait for someone to identify themselves. And luckily, there are people that are already known, the likes of Abbas Goulet, who you already know is someone who you can trust. So when you hear the police and his voice in unison, you are very sure that they are coming in for rescue.
So there was definitely communication from the security team who was coming to get you, and as you say, that was something that was comforting, and you knew that they were coming up, so you were able to identify them. And speaking of security, you know, if we dial out, if we magnify the situation and we talk about security in general in that building, how had it been day to day? How had the security been around Dusit complex on a daily basis in general?
I think it would be an unfair assessment for me to say anything contrary to saying that they actually had the procedures in place. They had enough barriers, they had enough security guards, but at the end of the day, maybe it's a long-term conversation that needs to be had within the country in these days and times. When I'm trying to inspect someone's car, but this person is already armed, most of these attackers don't come and wait to be inspected. They come and they're already opening fire. So our hearts must also go out to the guys who are every day manning the security post. That guard at the mall telling you, open your boot. Those guys that people are always giving grief every day. The kind of attack they're trying to prepare you for or prevent you for, I feel that at some point they're not as equipped as we would want them to be. The protocols were already there; they were in place. The security of the building was well done even from the beginning. You know, there's a first barrier, a second barrier, and then of course there is the gate, and then there is of course the billing barrier. But all those things would, of course, not match up to someone with an automatic rifle, someone with a bomb. So I think it is a conversation that should be had long-term from leadership level in terms of how do we arm even those guards that do man over these security checkpoints, because most of them are not really, they don't have the firearms, they don't know what to do if a grenade is thrown at them. But I feel that the security within the complex was fairly well done. There are enough emergency exits, and I think the first people who got away were able to use the emergency exits. They already knew where those emergency exits were. Some of them even knew of the back route that led across Nairobi River all the way into ICEA and into Wayakiwe. So I think there has been a deliberate attempt for them to ensure that there is adequate security within the building. It is just a matter of asking yourself, if you're holding a baton and someone comes with a gun, what do I do next? And it wouldn't be fair for me to pass any sort of judgment and say this guy should have been armed, but they had the protocols and procedures in place. It is only that this time around they were outmatched by the people who are trying to do harm.
Okay, thank you so much for speaking to us, Henry. And of course, we're very glad that you are safe and sound, and we wish you the best going forward. That was Henry Githaiga. He is working at Red House PR, which has their offices in the Dusit D2 hotel complex. And he just availed us with this information of exactly how things played out for him, how the rescue mission worked out for them as well, and also telling us about how he thinks that, you know, when we share a lot of information on social media when such events are happening, it can lead to more panic for those who are stuck inside, who are trapped, and who don't know exactly what the situation is outside. So a lot of information there coming in from one of the people who was rescued there. It's Henry Githaiga, who was rescued from that Dusit complex. And now